The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, welcome everybody. It's the weekly Noyantis Usergroup meeting. Sorry for the delay in start. We had a technical issue where I hadn't gone in as an organiser, so I was waiting like everybody else. Okay, but we're here now. Today is the 7th of January, so you have to excuse my voice. 7th of January 2019, first one of the year. So welcome everybody and Happy New Year to you all, of course. As always, if you have any questions, queries, and ideas, then please feel free to raise your hand, and we will get the ideas, get the mics open, and we'll talk through your requirements, ideas, problems, issues. Okay. While we're waiting for questions to come in, we'll quickly cover any updates that have been done or are in progress or planned and so on. So there was an update to the HTML editor this last week. I think it was Thursday, Friday last week, something like that. And that really was to do with the tabbing sequence. There was actually 2 or 3. Just let me quickly cover them so we can actually make sure we do mention what they are. Won't be a second. Might as well just bring that into here. But the help, I can see in the version that was released last week, 3.59, we've now added a new property, and the main changes were related to tabbing. So, and this was related to tabbing either inside of the HTML content or tabbing in a general form, which has got the HTML editor on the form. You've now got an option to and a property. So you've got a template option and a property, which is basically controls the tabbing when you're inside of the HTML content. So, for example, you've got a few clarion entries and spins and so on and so forth, and then you've got an actual editor control on the screen. As you're tabbing through the sequence, what it would do is previously would once you tabbed into the HTML editor, it would control the tabbing from within there. So if you was on a form inside of the HTML form, it would tab through the entries, but it wouldn't tab back out into the normal clarion controls. This property will allow you to basically skip the tabbing within the content and have the control of tab as you would normally expect it to in and out of the HTML editor. Sorry, 1 second. So that's the new property. The HTML editor help does mention certain shortcuts. We'd already cater for some of them, like Control A, and which is mark all and so on, and Control C, could copy and paste. We've now covered the others as well. So Control B, I, P, and U, which are toggle the bold, italic, and underline facilities. They will toggle, so you've got the shortcuts for those, including Control P, print. And last but not least, we've got a new shortcut of Shift space, which will insert a HTML hard space rather than a normal space character. We've added 3 new methods, some related to mainly the tabbing. One is that's not related to tabbing actually, but it's expanding more of the DOM object. So you can get to the DOM object, but now we're getting extra methods related to the raw DOM content of the HTML. And one of them is the get selected text. So for example, if this was a HTML document and you called that, the selected text would be tab in HTML content, that type of thing. New methods for the insert, the hard space, and toggle code view, which you never had in the past. You could do it via the buttons on the HTML editor, but you couldn't do it via code, and now you can. And basically, one of the last but not least was a few versions ago, we fixed an issue to do with the del key not working correctly. But we found an omission. Basically what it wasn't doing is if you'd highlighted some code, the del key wouldn't actually delete the content correctly. Now it will do. So if you've not got anything highlighted, it deletes to the right. If you have got something highlighted, it deletes the highlighted content. So that is the fix and the enhancement to the HTML editor, and that's available, and that was released last week. I think it was Thursday or Friday last week. So that's 3.59. Okay, some of these similar options, the tabbing in HTML content and well, really that one, and tabbing sequences, those changes are also in progress in the web viewer, which is part of the CodeJock suite controls. So if you've got that and using it, then again you'll have that property, and there's a correction to the tabbing sequence. So that is in progress, and that will be released very shortly as well. So basically the HTML editor and the HTML viewer both are linked, if you will. Editor's released, and that's the NBit editor, and then the viewer, which is the CodeJock viewer, that will be released this week. Okay, that's what's been released, and I'll say one coming out this week. Further updates on the Chilkat wrapper template are always ongoing, as usual. A lot more changes on the base classes, and hopefully by next week you'll see a big release of further base classes being covered. When I say base classes, let's just show you what I mean by this. As we know, the Chilkat product covers quite a few base classes, i.e. each one of these, and then we supply the task classes to go over the top, which makes use of various base classes all at the same time, making it easier for you to accomplish certain tasks. For example, connecting to Google and downloading calendar events takes a combination of the JSON object, the string builder, Oauth 2, the REST, the HTTP, the socket class. I think it also makes use of Google Auth and possibly a PFX class. The task class does all the work for you. All you have to do is just call the connect. That's the idea. Not all of these task classes, the base classes, are wrapped, but a good chunk are, and we've got even more coming out. So the next release, you'll see a lot more to do with the compression, basically all of these. Going through alphabetical, we did the most obvious ones to start with, and now we're going through the alphabetical. But yeah, we've got all of these wrapped, in progress of being wrapped, and you'll probably see a good quarter of them being updated next week. On top of that, we're also starting to take a look at the, this is very early on, the eBay interface. There was a question this last week on the news groups where people wanted to be able to interface into eBay, and that makes use of Oauth 2. It's a bit like, I suppose it's a bit like the QuickBooks Online interface, and then a bit of Dropbox type interfaces. They're all very similar to each other. So we're going to take a look at the eBay class, and we're going to basically see if we can create a task class to help out on that as well. So that will be coming along with also the Easy Post. Don't know if anyone's ever used Easy Post, or has a requirement to. We've used it in some of our applications, and basically the idea that they use is basically you interface to that one particular API, and then that will go off and talk to various different carriers, and there are loads of carriers. You can see various carriers throughout the world. Lots of different countries all supported. So we've already got this working in applications. Works really well. Users love it, and they provide extra functionality like address validation, so on and so forth. So like I say, we've already done this, but we never added it to the task class. So we're going to actually add that to the task class as well, and let's get that out of there for you to use as well. So that should make things, if people do use any kind of courier logistics integration, then I think they work by giving you the free quotes, so you could giving them dimensions of a set of parcels from and to address, and do you need a proof of delivery, do you need a signature, do you need insurance. You can put all the parameters in as part of the actual query content, and then they will query whichever carriers you've got accounts with, and ones which you haven't, if you do want them to do that, bring you back all the different services that are available with the rates and the values. And should you then purchase it via them, I think they then place it with the carrier, give you the PDF which you download, so you've got the actual PDF label to add to your parcel, print and put on your parcel, and they charge you something like 1 cent per label. So for an interface point of view, it's extremely cheap and really good. You get to add a lot of functionality to your applications very easily, and makes you look good. So we've already got this working, as I say, in application. It works really well. We're just going to create the wrapper template for it, add it as a task class, so you can use it within your applications as well. So that we'll do a webinar on that in the future to cover exactly how you work it and so on. So lots of updates in the pipeline, literally in progress now. Okay, so still no questions in. Now I know we've got one question from one of the users here now, Stan, and it's all to do the QuickBooks interface. So I'm going to, if it's got a microphone or oh, now I've got Stan, it's coming up here, you haven't got a microphone. And you haven't dialed in. So if you can, I can't unmute you, but if you can get some kind of audio communication, then what we'll do is we'll get the mics open. In the meantime, I'll cover some of the basics while Stan is just getting set up with a microphone or a phone dial-in, so we can speak to him. One of the things Stan wanted to cover was basically some of the basics of the QuickBooks integration and just getting started really, prior to even getting to the point of this. So the client ID, the client secret, and so on and so forth. How do we even get to this point in the first place? And that's fine. We've done it in the past, but a recap won't do anyone any harm. So let's just quickly cover that again. So one of the first things you will need to do is create yourself an account within Intuit, which are the authors of QuickBooks Online. Create yourself an account in the developer section of that. Just going to check the email just in case that's Stan emailing us. No, it wasn't. That's okay. Okay, so yes, you create yourself an account within the Intuit developer area of the website, which is developer.intuit.com. And once you've got that, and it's free of charge, of course, to create that. Once you've got that, then you can go to My Apps and you can create yourself what Intuit consider to be an application. Now, this is like a stepping stone, if you will, a bridge between your desktop application and the data that you want to go and get access to. So I've got a developer account. I actually use QuickBooks as well, live for a couple of companies ourselves, but we're going to really go here and look at how we would create an account. So an app. So we'll use one of these. We'll use don't really matter, this demo one. We're going to connect on this one because I've already got all the things already set up for us, but they are identical, I can assure you. So what we would do, we'll create a new app. It will take you to a screen like so, where it will offer you various different options, give you a few pointers, so start building and so on and so forth. The main things, and we could read this and go through one step at a time, but we'll jump a few and I'll tell you what the basic steps that you need. So the first thing you will need, you will notice that it will tell you now that you need to use Oauth 2. We don't worry about it. The template does it for you. The class does it for you. But Oauth 1 is basically been discontinued with QuickBooks for, I think, since possibly July last year, if not earlier. So it won't be a second. Voice is going. Sorry about that. I mean, ill over Christmas, so struggling a little. Okay. So we've got an app and we've gone to keys, and by default it will create you a development, a sandbox company. You can have a few of them if you like. I think on one of mine, I'm not sure it's this one actually, on my account, yeah, I've created 3 companies, a couple of UKs and a US company. Okay, so you will have a sandbox company and you can manage your sandboxes there should you need more. Go with the default, so you've got a sandbox company, and for that demo company, they will create you a client ID and a client secret automatically. So if you were just wanting to test from a sandbox point of view, we're going to use those keys. Now, in this screen, I'm prompting for, I've cut them short, just in case we ever do a webinar where we show the full key. But basically, and I can rotate these, so these will be rotated after this. So pointless trying to make a note of them. So basically, you would need a client ID and a client secret provided by QuickBooks. Then the chain, the steps that follow is when you go through their Oauth 2 connectivity. Oh, just trying to see if we've got. Oh, just open Stan. Hi, Stan, are you available?
Yeah.
Ah, brilliant. Okay.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out how to unmute or how to come online, and I couldn't.
Okay. Well, we're here now. That's the main thing. Any questions so far?
No, this is how far I got, and then I
very good.
stumbled.
Okay. So the steps, I'll leave the mic open. But again, if anybody else has any queries, feel free to get my attention, and we'll get the mics open on those as well. So we get the My Apps. We create an app. You will get client ID and secret, which would give you access to a sandbox company or any number of sandbox companies. Then when you connect, so let's say we hit connect here, it's going to go into the QuickBooks. It's going to want to, I've already logged in, so it's got me logged in. It's asking which company do I want to connect to. All of this is Oauth 2, okay? Which application I'm using the keys of that, but if it was the other, it would recognize the other app. That shows me as granted. Okay, so what has just happened here is the application has made a request, gone via Oauth 2, that the QuickBooks has authenticated you. I already been logged in, so that's why it didn't ask me for my username and ID, my ID and password. It asked for which company I want to talk to, and then which application it just wanted me to confirm. So all of those steps are controlled by them. The very end of it, it will then want to redirect that output onto a particular URL. So let's go back to here. So we can see the redirect URLs here. It will automatically add you on, which is its own browser, if you will. You can create your own. So you could say for sandbox companies, you're allowed to just go to a HTTP address, localhost, and then a port, because you would have a port expecting to get that data. So in the example app, it's asking you for which port number and which redirect you are going to use. What you have here must have been added to this section within the Intuit, within the keys on the app you've created within Intuit. So we're on the developer keys of the app. We've got the redirects, and we're going to say, okay, for use with these keys, we're going to authorize that, which was their default. We're going to authorize that, and we're going to authorize another. Okay. Now, if you were to get production keys, you need to do extra things. At the moment, that would work. That would get you access to Sandbox Company, i.e. here. We've got a connection. We can start issuing raw selects against the back end, like so. Or we've got some things which are nine bills were, yeah, okay. Oh, that's better. I wonder why that said there was nothing available then. Okay, but basically we've got a connection is the main point. Now, there's one step I would probably suggest you skip, and that is, even if you're using the Sandbox or you're using production keys, you might as well start using a redirect with a HTTPS, because you might as well get it out of the way at the testing stage, because you're going to need it at the production stage. When you want to use production keys to get to live data, and it's the only way you can get to live data, you need to have your redirect going off a secure website. So you can create your own, or you can use ours. Okay, and basically all that does is take whatever comes in to that address, which is the output from your authenticated QuickBooks connection. It takes the output of that and bounces it to localhost, and it bounces it to localhost 3017. That's why we ship it as one of the demos. You're welcome to use that, or of course you can use your own. So, and I do encourage you to have your own. You shouldn't really be reliant on anybody else. You're welcome to use ours, absolutely no problem. But of course, it's your own solution, so you should really, put your own solution in place. But for testing purposes, by all means, and until you get your own set up, by all means, feel free to use that address. So it's HTTPS, which is secure : / www.noyantis.com / Oauth2.php, and the O and the A are capitalized. The content of that I can show you now. Very, very simple. Oauth2.php. It's literally a straightforward redirect to localhost 3017 with all of the content that comes in. Okay. If anyone ever needs a copy of that, by all means, drop me an email, and I will gladly provide that to you for you use on your own website. So now, the reason I say you might as well use that now is I started using localhost, of course, when I was first doing the actual wrapper and making sure I could get talking to it. But all of that is totally irrelevant when you want to get to live data, because they have this statement there. Production URLs must use HTTPS secure, and there's no such thing as a secure localhost, hence why we're doing the redirect. So I would encourage you to use that while you're testing, and that while you're getting set up until you've got an HTTPS of your own, and then just have a little redirect on there. Any questions so far? Does that make sense?
That all makes sense. Thank
Cool.
you.
That's good. So at that point, we've just demonstrated. We'll do it again, just to show. But yes, basically, we would pass it we'll have a quick look at the actual methods under here, but we're calling a connect method. That's going to ask you to log in. It's recognized I've already logged in because I did literally just prior to this. I'm going to select the company. It's going to ask me to confirm, and that's been granted. Okay, so we're happy with those. that has now given us our connection back. It's given us our current access token, which is valid for 60 minutes, and it's given us a refresh token, which is valid for, I think it's 101 days, either 100 days or 101 days. And then we can start issuing things against this. So bills. Okay, maybe not bills. Probably a bad example. Is it does bill or is it bills? Yeah, must be it. And so on. So that's actually connection. What I do in my applications, just a tip, you don't have to go down this route, but what I do in my application is, rather than calling the connect, I'll attempt to do. I'll have a look at the expiry of the. I think I store the expiry date and time of the current token, and of course I store the information of the refresh token, and I attempt to reconnect using the previous details. And if that's if they're still valid, you will get a reconnection. The very first thing I do after that is do a refresh, because it might be that you got in literally just before the 1 hour was up. So the very first thing I'll do is I'll attempt to reconnect using the previous connection details I had, and then I'll call the refresh. And in some of our applications, they're running as services. So within each hour, they will call the refresh automatically, which uses these details, and it keeps this current, which means you never, if it's running as a service, your application's never going to have to prompt the user for a reconnection within 100 days. So ultimately, what we're talking, 3-4 times a year, your application is going to prompt the user for a connection. After that, as long as it's continually running, the connection will stay live, and you'll just keep calling the refresh to keep the current access token live. So that's a tip. You don't have to do that. You might want users to be prompted and log in every time they want to get to their data and synchronize. But that's how we do it in our applications, and it's by far the minimum effect on the user and the most seamless running of it. Okie dokie. To get your production keys, what you would do, where's my website? What you would do is go to the settings tab, give it some kind of name. You do need to give it a URL of some, sorry, it won't be a second. You have to give it the URL of some terms and conditions. So just for example, well, actually, tell you what I will do. I'll just open that on another browser here, and I'll look at the one for my my Noyantis one. I just don't want to show my production keys for obvious things. So here we could have it as demo testing, whatever we want to give it. Because it wants to go to a secure, you do need to have some kind of visual end user agreement and privacy policy. I just use the ones off my website, which are perfectly adequate for what I want to achieve. But it does essentially, it needs a name for the app, which it will have already been got by default, agreement URL, and a policy URL. Where do you want the data to be accessed from? So you can turn different countries on and off, and so on and so forth if you want. Do you require single sign? No, we don't. And basically just various details regarding the development and the production. So for example, Noyantis.com, and yep, Noyantis.com. I think that would really be it. With that, once you've got that, and we save that, okay, we go back to our keys, still for the same app, of course, but this time it's not showing them, but the whole new section has now appeared, and it's your production. You don't have to worry about the URLs. as in the production URL and the Sandbox URL. All of those are taken care of via the class and the template. So you don't have to worry about any of those. But just as with the Sandbox Company, you have to give it the URL, the redirects. You have to do the same with the production one. So can't put that one in because it will state that it has to be a HTTPS. So I'm going to add that, add URL, add that, save. And now if I use those keys, the production key and the production secret, to talk to QuickBooks, it would know it's this application via the combination of those. It would know what companies it would have access to, and I've got a couple of companies there, and I would be connecting with that as my redirect URL, and that would let you get through, which of course you've just seen in action, because that's exactly what we're doing here. So just to recap, you would need, for your application that you create, obviously you got your production, add this as a redirect URL, go to your settings, give it some visual terms and conditions and privacy policy, set which countries should you want to be able to access your data. You don't need a single sign-on because it's on by default, but you don't need it. And just give it a host domain. And mine is the Noyantis.com, which of course my redirect's on there, and so on. Once you give it those pieces of information and saved it, do remember to save, of course. You go back to your keys and you will get your production keys and your production secret. And then you will start using those here and turn off the sandbox. That flag, by the way, does nothing more than internally tell it which URLs to do all your postings against, the sandbox URLs or the production URLs. Okay, that's really it. I am in the process of writing all of that up for you, so you will get a full write-up. Just like if I go to our Chilkat, you will have already have this actually, but application software. So example Chilkat, and in the instructions, there's one there to do with creating Google service accounts. I'm going to create the exact same step by step. Let's have a look at it.
I do have one question.
Yes, of course. Yeah, but you will. I'm just saying you will get something like this, a step-by-step guide for the QuickBooks as well. So that's the one.
All right. I have one quick question.
You'll fire away.
All right. If I'm going to set this up for client A, which I don't know anything about, but I'm going to be on their computer or whatever, and client B, are those production keys the same?
No, they are per client. So when I've logged in to Intuit here, right at the start, I've logged in on my account, my login, which I used for my actual my data, my QuickBooks login. So you would have client A. I take it client A and client B are not related. They're nothing, totally independent.
Right.
Yeah. So client A would have to do the steps we've just mentioned. Client B would have to do those same steps. All of these production keys are related directly to your QuickBooks account, if you will.
So do they have to get a login into the Intuit developer?
Yes, basically they would have to register their normal QuickBooks, like mine. My login is my email address. We've got a couple, obviously. Mine is a.wilton. I then associated that with the QuickBooks developer. So when I sign up and register with QuickBooks developer, I give it that my normal QuickBooks email address. It recognizes me, and then I'm registered in the developer portal, and that is how it has automatically known from a production point of view. When I get my production keys, I've got two companies there, and it's associating me with both of those companies, and my login with QuickBooks is associated with both of those companies.
Okay.
So you would, if you have 10 clients who all totally independent clients who all want to start making use of this, all 10 will have to do the exact same steps, but of course it's related to their individual QuickBooks accounts.
Okay. All right.
This is all requirements of
understand
QuickBooks.
that.
Yeah, this is all requirements of QuickBooks. This is not, it's not us. This is just how the QuickBooks Online interface and the API works, and their requirements. Okay, so that is. Feel free, give it some more. As we're going through, you probably have other questions and queries pop up. So by all means, just shout up. So that gets us our connectivity. Now you've got the various different entities that you can talk to, and we mentioned actually just recently, I think it was the last one of the year before we finished, that we just added a quick update for the classifications, and it was Stan. You can thank Stan for that, who brought that to my attention. So that's now in there. Now all of these, the best way of getting to these structures. And let's just have a look at some of this code so we can see what's gone on so far. So if we're happy with that, I'm just going to actually move that out of the way, and I'm going to rotate that secret a couple of times before I forget. Yep, so for that application, that's been rotated. So for the sake of the recording, those previous keys and secret and ID that you've just seen are kind of null and void now. Okay, so that's out of the way. Let's just quickly go to how we would connect, disconnect, refresh, and then we'll talk about the actual data, the inserting, updating, and so on. So one of the task classes. To make use of it, we would add an extension to the particular procedure in question. We don't need to specify the individual base classes because we're going to use the task class which does all the work for you. So we're going to jump straight to the task class, and we're going to say we want to make use of QuickBooks, and the class's name, CK QuickBooks. That's really it at that point. So we want that. You will, maybe via somewhere within your own software and so on and so forth, you will have stored this client ID and secret, and possibly the redirect and so on, and the port. The first thing you're going to want to do is call a connect. So we've got a method called connect. There's a class we've just said we want to turn on. So we want the task class CK QuickBooks. We're going to call the method connect, and that takes parameters client ID, which of course has been provided via QuickBooks, the client secret again, redirect, which is an optional, and the port, which is an optional. Now, if they wasn't specified, it would automatically default to its own default port and local host, which is fine, as we know, for sandbox keys, but no good for production. And in that, the end goal of all of this is to get to live data and provide an interface for your clients. Then, as I say, you might as well jump straight in and start using the correct redirect, so that when you do make the switch from sandbox to live, the only change you need to do is give it the different keys and turn off the sandbox mode. That's it. So we'll call connect with those parameters, and it will give you a success or failback. It will give you a true or false. If it's true, yes, you've got a connection, and if it's false, obviously you haven't. It's kind of obvious. If it's true, you got your connection, and certain properties within the class will be populated for you. So there's a group structure called active connections. Let's take a quick look at that. I'm sorry, it's quite crude, but I'm going to open up the actual .inc. So let me just try and bring that in. Put that there. Close that. And let's just open up that class. So, active connections. So it's got a few things in here. The main things we're going to be interested in and you're probably going to be interested in yourself in storing, are the access token and the date and time, and probably not the realm, I'm not sure about the realm, but the refresh token, date and time. They're the main things you're going to be after. Okay. Where's our Clarion? So that's got our connection, and we can see that these are available to us. Now, if we wanted to call a reconnect, for example, we look at our methods, and we've got one called connect, which we've just been using there, connect, client ID, client secret. What you can do is call the reconnect, and that's what I was mentioning earlier. And you can pass it the connection. I'll quickly have to have a look at how I do it in one of mine. But the reconnect. Oh, yeah. What we do to reconnect is I'll store these in my application, and if all of those happen to be still valid, then it will automatically reconnect. So let's have a look at what we do in this example. If I rerun that now, it's automatically reconnected us because it's within 60 minutes, or it's still within the valid expiry date of our last token. So I'll refresh that just to be on the safe side. There we go, 1750. The way that's accomplished in here is, I bet I've done it under the window. Yep, I go and read them. I'm just storing them in Inini. You probably wouldn't do. You'll store them properly in your TPS or your database tables and so on and so forth. But bring them back, populate this section, so the active connections. So basically restore it from the last session, if you will. And once you've restored it, call the reconnect. And if you've got a connection, you know that it's actually still true. If the reconnect has failed, your connection won't be true. The active connection to QuickBooks would be false. Does that make sense? I'll take that as a yes. So basically, yeah, as the window opens.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
No, very good. So yeah, as the window opens, I restore the last session. Restore the last session and attempt to reconnect. And that takes those properties and then calls the relevant QuickBooks method to try and re-establish that connection, just like it's doing there now. It's going, okay, yep, you're perfectly valid. We'll allow you back in, and so on. Or not back in. We'll allow you to continue. So that's all that's doing. So that's the connect. The disconnect is not very exciting. The disconnect is very similar to the connect, except you just call disconnect and it will return you a true or false of has it been able to cut the connection. I've yet to see it not disconnect, I'll be honest with you, but technically it could return a false. I suppose if your internet temporarily went down between you attempting to call it and then calling it, it would fail. But ultimately, that should normally return you a true, and that will indicate then that you are disconnected from QuickBooks. Moving on from that, let's take a look at our example. So we'll go with these classifications. These are the new ones. I'm going to download, and we can see, don't think that ID is correct actually. Pass. Let's add a new classification for CIDL, Clarion Live today. It's active. Okay, so it's created us a brand new classification up in QuickBooks. Now what we've just done there is, let's have a quick look at that. We've got a method called update class. That's the one in question. It takes the group structure of the class definition, if you will, and an action, which is our standard equate, insert record, change record, delete record. So that will return you the true or false, as could it do that or not. We've just seen it do it, so we know it does it, but basically, so it will require a group and an action. We take a look, we take a look at that group, and this approach is used for all of the things. So be it a customer, a vendor, a tax rate, an account, a GL account, all of those. It's the same approach for all of them. So here's a group structure. For the insert, certain things won't be required. For example, the ID and the sync token, they will not be required for the insert. If you happen to populate them with something, that's fine. The class is clever enough to recognize that you're inserting, and it just will ignore those and not pass them on to QuickBooks at the back end. Same with the metadata create and time and so on. Main things we wanted to do there was specify a name, a fully qualified name. You can pass it as per the QuickBooks documentation, parent, ref, and value and name. Is it a subclass, and is it active? And the active flag is used to really delete records within QuickBooks. If that returned true, which of course it did, then it will return you that group repopulated. So if we look at that back to the update, will it do that? Yeah, I'm sure it does. Yeah, well, we'll look in the source code in a second. It will return you the ID, so it will repopulate the group. I'm sure it does. It repopulates the group, but this time you will get the extra information in there. For example, the ID and the sync token. Now, the sync token, basically the IDs within QuickBooks work in a combination of both the ID and the sync token. Just the same as Google do for theirs, like their calendar events, they have an ID and an e-tag, which is equivalent to a revision. The sync token is a revision. So if I was to change this now, and I'll call it Clarion Live 2, you can see the sync token has gone up by 1. Now, if you was to ever want to update that, what you should do, in the example that will show you, is you should really download the very latest of this to start with. So, and I'll show you for why. Maybe not on the classification. I'll show you on a customer account. Let's go to our customers. We'll download. Brilliant. Here's one prepared earlier. We've probably got a Noyantis test there. Now, somewhere, which I started to prepare for you before, I'm just trying to find it. It won't be a second, sorry. We're connected. It's Sandbox here, because obviously we're connected. I've got ID 68 is Noyantis Limited version 6. This is the QuickBooks Sandbox Company in question. And from the developer, by the way, we'll cover these up here. These options are really good for documentation, for trying out things. They're extremely good, these options. We'll quickly mention them in a second. But via those and via this, I've gone into view the Sandbox Company. This is that Sandbox Company. If I go to the sales, I should see Noyantis version 6. There it is. I'm going to quickly edit that company, and I'm going to call it version 6.1. Okay, that's now called version 6.1. In our application, and we can see it's 68 revision 35. If I was to re-download that one, it's now gone up to 68 revision 36, and it's got its different name. That's because it's been changed by another person somewhere else in the world, but it's been changed by somebody else. So what I recommend you do, if you was to ever want to go and change a particular record, you've probably got some kind of cross-reference. You've got your own customer table, and you store the external ID, to them within QuickBooks, so that if you were to change some details in your application, you want them to reflect automatically up in QuickBooks, and vice versa. If somebody does change it in QuickBooks, rather than rekey it in your application, you want to synchronize them back down again. So if you was to say your local application was to do the update, wanting to push an update through, what I would recommend you do is re-download that one single entity first. That will give you the latest. The ID will always remain static, but the latest revision, the latest sync token, that will bring you down the latest. You can then change its content from with the details from your system, and then push it back up again. So if we say, no, it's not 6.1. Oh. Now why is that update not working? Oh, we'll fix that in a second. That's something local to our application. It's only a demo app, by the way. Yeah, it's definitely a bug in our demo app, which has just come about. But what you would do is re-download, do the change, and then call the update, but with a change record. So you could be download class, could be download entity. So you would call the download. We've got a group structure set up for you with all the values that's going to come back and an ID. So here we would have an empty group structure defined like that, just local to your application. We'll call download, we'll download customer. We'll pass it the local group structure with an ID of 68, which happens to be that record there. That will come down. That group will be populated with all the details, including the latest revision and so on. You then change the particular details that you need to change. Don't change the revision. QuickBooks will take care of that for you. You just change the details and then call the update. So it would be download customer, change the group, upload customer. We can see here, upload customer. Update customer. Pass it the group structure, which you've just got via the download, with change record. And that would flush it through. So yeah, that will do it. The download would have populated both the ID and the sync token for you. Don't bother changing those. Change the other attributes like the name, address, so on and so forth, and then call the update customer or update class, update employee, whatever the entity is that you're working with. So the main thing I'm mentioning is if you wanted to do a particular change, do the download first, which will populate the group entirely for you. Then change the elements of the group that you need, and then do the update with that same group. And hey presto, you'll have synchronized the data down from QuickBooks, change, and then up to QuickBooks. And you want to really do that with any particular entity that you're working with. Obviously, if you're inserting, you don't need to do the download to start with. It's going to be a straightforward update with an insert record. Okay, any questions on that?
Okay, so when you pull in the customer and the class, the ID numbers and stuff, but what information from that is required to push a journal entry up?
Okay, journal entry. So the easiest. So again, with the journal entries, we can see a journal entry. There we go. For the entities that we've got covered, we've got the general ledger accounts, and we can add to this all the time. In fact, we've got to do something to do with payments. But you can do accounts, bills, which are supplier invoices, if you will, classes, which are your classifications, credit memos, currencies, customers, employees, invoices, journal entries, vendors, vendor credits, and tax rates. That's what's covered at the moment, which give you a really, really good default working set. Sorry, just repeat your question. I've just said about that and I forgot. Oh, I was going to say what you said about posting a journal entry. So for a journal entry, I actually did that for one of the... oh, he's gone. He was on here earlier, Bill. Yeah, he uses the QuickBooks interface, and he wanted it purely for the journal entries, close of day values updating, if you will, for the various different stores. Now, if you was to, on any of these, you have a plural, you have a download. So let's say the currencies. Download currencies, which will download all the currencies into a queue, i.e. what you're looking at here, so on and so forth. And you have the single download, which is just a group structure. Okay. The journal entries, always look at the particular, the groups. So for journal entries, it's going to take the download and the upload is going to be the same. Journal entry, it's going to want a group, which is going to be the journal entry header. It's going to want the lines queue, which is based upon a predefined structure for you. So it's going to want the lines of the entry and the tax lines queue. And that is it. And then the action. Okay, so it's going to want the journal entry header, and essentially the main one we're after is the journal entry header and the entry lines queue. And we'll take a look at the tax line one as well. So let's start with, that group structure. All of this matches the QuickBooks help. So let's bring that QuickBooks in. And I mentioned some of this is really, just let me go up to here one second. Just re-rotate that. Okay, let's go up to API reference. So that's just going up to there. Okay, so what I've just done is from the My Apps area, just went to here, API reference. They've just literally at the end of 2018 revamped this, and it was pretty good before. So let's take a look. So we're after, they have revamped it because they used to just be alphabetical. So we'll look under all entries. Journal entry, okay. So you've got the bit about the business rules. That's their rules about posting. So if you were to post an invoice and you said the overall total was £200 or $200, but you only give it line details of $50, it's going to fail the business logic because the two just don't add up. So you've got all the things of the business rules, and they are different per posting that you are doing. That's really up to yourself. That's like somebody trying to interface into your application. You're going to put restrictions to say, okay, you can talk to my data, but you're going to have to make sure you're not putting rubbish in there, so to speak. So we would go through here. You've got the attributes, so we can see it's an ID. It's got the lines, a sync token, currency ref with a value and a name, a document number should you want it, and a private note, all the different elements that you're seeing about this. What we always do is we match that one for one. So anything that's in the QuickBooks help, you'll have here. So we can see here some of the things what we would have thought metadata, you saw a document number, saw a transaction date, the private note. Obviously, if it's a sub queue, we don't put that as part of that group structure. That is, but we put a place marker in to tell you, and that is the entry line queue. So you're going to be passing it a queue. There you're going to be passing it a tax line queue. We saw a total amount. We saw the currency reference. In the, wrong one. Within here, they would have currency reference dot value, currency reference dot name. Well, from a Clarion point of view, you can't obviously have a variable with a dot in there, so we just have it as an underscore. So you can see it's currency reference underscore value, currency reference underscore name. But all of the fields are there. So you would populate this header section. You would populate a queue, and all these structures, you create them locally, but they're all you create them like this, or you create a queue of the line structure. And there's your lines. So we can see here, line number, a description, and an amount. Now, is there anything to do with classification? No, so you've got class. So the class value and the class name, the value would be the ID. So your journal entry line detail underscore class ref dot value would be, I don't know any. Be that one there, 51. That picture is wrong on that. We'll create that correct that in the demo app in a second. But that would be 51. Just like we can see here on downloading some bills. There's some bills, and there are their unique IDs, and our customers obviously got those IDs, employees, and so on and so forth. So basically, that's a bit of a poor employee, but you get the idea. Within QuickBooks, and this is common to a lot of API interfaces that work on sometimes just singular. Xero works on a single field, a GUID field, but Microsoft Office 365, Google, I think Dropbox for them. Yeah, Dropbox, I think, from memory. Obviously, QuickBooks, they work on a combination of an ID, which is static once it's been created, and the sync token, which is nothing more than a revision number. In Google, it happens to be an e-tag, which looks very similar to a GUID, but it's essentially just a unique identifier to say this is the version that I'm working with now, and next time you change it, it will change to a different GUID. It will be a change to a different e-tag, but it will basically be a different revision. So when you're downloading, you would always talk about this singular ID. So for your question to say, I'm going to go and post a journal entry, and I need to put it against a particular classification or an invoice line against a particular classification, you're going to be using 51. You're going to be using that ID. That's just an incorrect display picture. Sorry about that. But yes, you're going to be using that ID. Does that make sense? The question is, what values are needed from classes customers to push a journal entry? Yeah. So your questions would be for that, for a journal entry. In the header, it would be against a particular, that's just the idea of the journal. So to push one, that would be, you wouldn't specify that kind of data because you're inserting. You could give it a document number, probably a notary type thing, but it could give it a number and a date, a private note against it, some tax information, the total amount, currency, of course, which again, the value would be an ID from the currencies download. So I'm just working on a task at the moment in an application where it's synchronizing loads of data, both to QuickBooks and Xero at the same time. And we've got the plans for Mind Your Own Business and Sage 1, whatever it's called now. I think they've renamed it, but it was Sage 1. So basically, the application in which we're working on synchronizes the localized desktop application data to any number of different accounting systems, depending on what their clients use. All we're doing in the tables is storing an external ID and an external revision against all of the particular tables, so currencies, tax rates, classifications, customers, suppliers, so on and so forth, and transactions. We are storing the external IDs of those, so that when I want to go and do a new posting against a customer, I've raised locally in my desktop application, I've raised a transaction, be it an invoice. Then I've got enough information to be able to post that into QuickBooks, because I can cross-reference my local tax code V to QuickBooks' internal tax code ID of 72, for example. So I know in my tables I have a cross-reference to say internally I know it as V, but which is VAT because it's UK based, but so they know it as V for VAT, and QuickBooks knows it as standard rate tax 20%, and internally it happens to be ID number 72. But because I've got them downloaded and on my V record, my tax rate record, I've got the 72 stored as its external ID, then that's brilliant. That means that I can then go and when I'm posting against a particular transaction against a customer, I can say I want it to be recorded against tax rate 72, not tax code V, which they wouldn't have a clue what V was. So you would always post the IDs. And that's for all of the entities, currencies, tax rates, classifications, the customer themselves, so on and so forth.
So you have to have a tax code to post a journal entry and a currency reference.
I'm not sure whether they would let you off the currency, and the default one would kick in. Default one of the account. All of that really comes down to their business rules. You'd have to do a check on their business rules of the particular entity and the transaction in question. So let's have a look for invoice if it says anything.
Because an invoice, you would have to have a tax rate. But
tax rate, yes. I was thinking more the currency, to be honest. So
yeah, but if you're doing just a journal entry, you wouldn't need the tax rate, but you could use the currency.
Yeah, it really. I'm sorry to be vague. It's such the complexity and how enormous the actual interface is into QuickBooks Online. I'm trying to give like a generalized approach and a generalized rule. Each different transaction is going to have its own business logic, of course, as per what they want for their system. Now, we give you the mechanisms to make sure that you can bring all the things down. So you can see here, let's have a look. Tax line detail, tax code reference, value, tax. That's surprised at that tax actually, because I expect an ID to be more the ID. I'll be honest with you. Can't see that being right, I'll be honest. But okay, where's their currency? Anything about currency in there? Line number 2, amount, ID. That's just the download. See, there's like a stock item, if you will. So we can see here they've got rock fountain, but its value is 5. The name, totally irrelevant. It's the value that you're going to be specifying on that one. And it'll be the same with the taxes and the currencies and so on and so forth. So maybe they have got one called tax in their data. But all the IDs I've seen, we allow for alphanumeric, but all the IDs I've seen are numeric. Have I got taxes in here? Let's just take a look. Probably prove me wrong this now, won't it? Okay, so we've got, so we can see here, active true. Where's its ID? Yeah, see, there's ID 12. So whatever that name is, EC. This is one of the names that they call it. They call it VAT, and it's minus 20%, and so on. But internally, it's ID 12. From a posting point of view, we will be talking to ID 12. Next one would be, let's take a look. Is that 0 rate ZR? I presume it is. Yeah, rate value 0, tax rate 7, so on and so forth. So it's always the IDs that you are talking against. Do you know what? Just let me check one thing on that. Just let me check one thing on that. Let's start from currency. There's no currency. The currencies. It's company currency. Yeah, it's company currency. Yeah, I was just thinking then, I have seen someone come down with KD and so on, but again, it's still the ID that I think we talk against. Oh, been quite a lot of feedback there. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to check the ID on the currency, but I am 99.9% sure it's always the ID that you, from a posting point of view, that you're going to be using.
All right. Show the line detail definition again.
Yeah, of course, yeah. For the journal entry, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so journal entry. I'd say I did this for Bill, who was on earlier, so he's got it in his application. For
Okay, there's two things missing off of it, and I wonder why. One, you can define to a class, but you can't define to a customer, and you also can't define to a vendor.
Not well on journal entry. In QuickBooks, you can't go to a customer if it's just a straightforward journal entry. If I was to do this is only play data, but if you do a journal entry, it's just account to account. There is no customer. If it was a sales line, a sales invoice line, of course that would be against a customer. But a journal entry, just a straightforward, I'm transferring data, an amount from general ledger cost of sales to cost of sales parts only, that type of thing, and you wanted to just move, do a nominal journal or a general ledger journal from one nominal account to another, then that's a journal entry from the QuickBooks type point of view. And of course, you've got your classification, like you say, there as well. So that's ultimately the visual approach, visual of that line, if you will. But you wouldn't have customer in there if it was you were raising a sales invoice. So sales, let's choose number 6. There we go. We'll choose that.
So how would you add a check if you wanted to write it to somebody?
It'd go against a payment. So to go an invoice, this is how you would write it, but that would be a sales invoice. So then you would have what customer is it for, various other information. So let's just follow that one through. Sales invoice. So we would want.
But if you wanted to write a check and you didn't want us to go through an invoice first,
you can write the payment. You can't do the payment. I've got to put the payment one in there. But as I was saying before about the entities that we've currently got done, and the payment one we've still got to do. But that'll go in. I'll get that in probably the latter end of this week. Let me just have a quick look at the help, and I'll tell you how fast it'll be. 1 second. There we go. Payment. Payment will be very similar to what we've already got.
Goes against the vendor. You have to have a vendor specified.
Not necessarily, because you might have a payment received from a customer.
If you're writing a check, you have to have it against a vendor.
Yeah, but I thought if you're receiving this might be different terminology. I think I'm hoping a payment is this just a payment? Because a payment in QuickBooks, payment can be applied for a particular customer.
That's actually an AR entry.
Right. Okay. Sorry, that's what I was referring
to. An AR.
Right. So.
And what I'm referencing is a check going against an AP, an accounts payable item.
Yeah. No, I've got you. What would they consider that to be? That's an expense. You've got that now. Sorry. Expense. Hang on a second. Oh. Okay, 1 second then. Vendor expenses. Got vendor credit. Header, rows, columns. That's a report. Half the thing is finding what they. Yeah, that's a report. We don't really want that.
We've changed this from the original API.
So we want the payment, but like say an AP payment, sales receipt, vendor balance, vendor credit, accounts payable transaction that represents a refund or a credit of payment for goods. Is that what we're talking about?
No, because when you write a check,
Well, I think that's what you just said.
in particular, what I'm looking at is from a payroll company where you enter the journal entry, and it looks like there is no job costing in the online product, to where you can keep expenses and record them to customers. You can only do it to classes. But then the checks, the employee checks that are written, which are drawn on your bank account, they've got to go somewhere. I was trying to figure this out myself, and I couldn't find.
I think that is the vendor credit is okay. Vendor credit object is an accounts payable transaction that represents a refund of a credit, a refund or credit of payment for goods or services. So wouldn't that be payment of services? So your payroll. It is a credit that a vendor owes. Oh no, it's a vendor that credit owes you. Okay, no, so it's not really a vendor credit then. Vendor expense.
Mm-mm.
But that looks like it's just a report.
There's got to be something. I'll have to look and see, and I'll send you an email.
Yeah, by all means. But we have got a bad example of the vendor credit because I'm sure we've got that vendor credits. Yes, we have there. So let's do the AR payment because that's not covered, and I know it's one that's got to be done. So, for example, let's just jump up to that payment. Yep. So all the stuff about it. Now I'll take a look down here, and I'm glad to report now, as we've done more and more of these and so on and so forth, then they all are very similar to each other. So to add that isn't going to be that great a work for me. It's probably a morning's work to get that added in there. So if you find what QuickBooks Online term this vendor payment, if you will, if you find out what their terminology is for it, then I'll get it wrapped in there for you and get another update out.
Go into the journal entry. Go into the journal entry on the screen there.
On the screen, yeah. So up here.
No. Back on the other screen. You had it.
Oh, sorry, in here.
On the API.
Got you. Okay, yeah. So, but that's just moving money from chart account to chart account.
Let's see.
That's kind of it. That doesn't always show you all the options, so it is worth reading down the left for the extra options. But we always take from this. We always take all of the actual content.
All right.
But
Show
ultimately,
child attributes.
Yep. So you've got different types when you come to here now. So these are the types for the journal entry line detail. So we can see some under here.
All right. Keep scrolling.
Yep. Count task is going to be name and value. Your class reference. Now what you? Oh no, not that one.
Department. Total status. Keep going.
Yep.
Keep going.
That'll just be your name and so on.
All right, I'll have to go look through here and see if I can
find what
figure out.
the entity is. I'm just trying to think from because I run QuickBooks ourselves. That's why I knew the journals, because we have, end of each month we have to do certain journal entries. More from the expense suppliers. Oh, okay. So he's got some dummy data in there. That's great. And what can we do against one of these suppliers? Bank of any city. So can we do a new payment in there? Can do a new bill. So that's
Check.
we're looking, yeah, so check. So we can do it. That's the thing you're talking about here, I take it, with the class.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be our chart of accounts. So, yeah, so we can do it. What do they call it? And then we'll be halfway there for it. So if we can find what it's called, as in these entities here.
I'll have to go play because.
And if I've not got it right, I'll do it for you. That's absolutely no problem. And the balance.
Because I've done this QuickBooks interfacing for about 200 clients.
Right. Okay. Oh, you've
done it for about 5 years or longer. So I've done this an awful lot and made QuickBooks do things that wasn't intended. So.
Well, if you can just grab us what that particular name is, then yeah, absolutely no problem. Like I say, that the payment one, that's to come in next. And you've just seen I've got most of the actual structures wrapped for the common elements. The payment being a blatant omission. This is AR payment, being a blatant omission, but for the driving force, how this came about, it wasn't actually required. So. But it is required for other clients, of course, and that's why it's going in now. You can tell us what the other thing is, and I'll get that in straight away as well. It's not bill payment, is it?
Well, that'll give me something to do.
Just wonder under the bills. Don't come under bill payment, does it? Bill payment, it's not that one. A bill, a business owner receives from a vendor for goods. I think it's bill payment. So just like we've got payment, because that's what I was just thinking there. We have a lot of their terminology is, let's just jump down to the bottom. It's nice and easy there. So we can see here we've got invoice, probably a credit memo and a vendor credit, and invoice and bill. And then we're going to have a payment and a bill payment. So I think it's going to be bill payment. I'll make a quick note if you want to quickly confirm that for us, but I'll make a note in the meantime. I think it's going to be.
I'll go play in QuickBooks and the settings and see if I can figure out what you do to get the customer in the journal entry too.
Well, you wouldn't do it in the journal.
It's got to be somewhere.
That's an invoice, that one, to put the customer in, which you've already got covered.
It's just weird.
They have changed the names, but if we can just quickly show you that, let's just try. This is bill payment. How many bill payments are there? So we'll just use the raw interface here. I just want to make sure I've got what's the last one. Total count 2. Okay, total count 2. So if I do a bill payment here, Bank of any city, doesn't really matter what I'm doing.
That's just an expense account there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to put a AGW 10. There you go. Bill payment of 10 against that account. Balance is 54 odd. Oh, that's a bank account. Tax code. Okay. I'm just wondering if I re-query that. Did that re-query? I would have expected that to be the bill payment, I'll be honest. I'll do some playing as well, both for the payments and the bill payments. I'm still kind of thinking it is that, I'll be honest. So, but we'll between the pair of us, I'm sure we'll find what it is.
All right. It's got to be there somewhere.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, but the thing is, if you can get to it via the screen here, then you can get to it via the API. I just need to know what it is I'm querying, the structure, and then I'll just add. And the approach will be identical to this. It will be the download and the downloads. So bring them all down, or bring a specific down, and the upload. And in between, there's a JSON transfer. But you don't have to worry about that. That's just what it uses internally to transfer the data from their structures into my structures.
Well, you've given me plenty to work on, so I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
No problem
Bye-bye.
at all. Okay, and with that, there's no other questions. So yeah, I think we are more or less done, and it's it's just over time, so that's good. So thank you for attending. So thanks everybody for attending. I'll just cut that. John is saying a great demo of the Chilkat QuickBooks today, and he wants to get the video uploaded ASAP. So I will, at the end of this, I'll leave the video converting overnight, and it will be uploaded in the morning. Thank you everyone for attending, and I shall see you all next week. Thanks. Bye.